What is the weight of a secret that can change the course of a battle? Imagine carrying in your heart the knowledge of an act so decisive that it saved thousands of lives, but which, at the same time, sealed your lips forever. A burden you carry from youth to the grave, a war story that dies with you. We are accustomed to grand monuments, to the names of generals engraved in bronze, to strategies discussed in smoke-filled rooms. But the real story often hides in the quietest places, in the most unexpected hearts. Today, we're not talking about an army, but about a single soul, a 19-year-old girl. Think about it, 19 years old. The age when life should be an open promise, a horizon of possibilities, was, for her, the epicenter of an impossible decision. Before her was not a platoon or a company. Before her was a German division, a war machine with thousands of men, tanks, artillery, a seemingly unstoppable force. How did a single girl with resources we can barely imagine manage to stop this leviathan of steel and gunpowder? And more profoundly, why did she never tell anyone? What kind of secret was it, so powerful, or perhaps so terrible, that she chose eternal silence? That is the journey we will take today. We will not only investigate an event, we will try to touch the soul of an anonymous heroine, to feel the weight of the sacrifice she made not only on that day, but every day of her life by keeping this story locked within herself. This is not a tale of glory, but of the true cost of resistance. It is a validation of silent courage. The promise we make here, on this channel, is to look beyond the smoke of battle and find the humanity that survived, that fought, and that, in this case, kept to herself the greatest achievement of her life. Her story deserves to be felt, even if the exact details are lost forever. It shows us that the impact of a life is not measured by the noise it makes, but by the difference it makes. Imagine the scene. Europe is ablaze. The air smells of fear and soot. The rhythmic sound of marching boots is like the heartbeat of an approaching monster. Every news report on the radio, every whispered rumor in the village confirms that the front line has collapsed. Organized resistance has crumbled, and the advance of that particular division seemed inevitable. They were the spearhead, and nothing seemed capable of breaking that spearhead. In this chaos we find our protagonist. She doesn't wear a uniform. She doesn't carry rank. She is 19 years old. Perhaps she was helping to hide supplies, perhaps serving as a messenger, or perhaps she was just a civilian trying to survive. But she saw what others didn't see. She knew the land, the rivers, the bridges, the forests, like the back of her hand. She knew the weaknesses that an invading army, however powerful, could never map. The pain of that moment is almost palpable. The feeling of abandonment. Where were the Allied armies? Where were the leaders who promised protection? There was only the sound of approaching German engines and the terrified silence of her community. Her resilience was not an act of brute force, but an act of desperate intelligence, born from the absolute need to protect what she loved. She looked at the war machine and didn't see an invincible force. She saw a system, and every system has a flaw. Her journey is proof that sometimes the most unlikely stone can bring down the giant. In that instant, she became more than a 19-year-old girl. She became the embodiment of resistance, a sharp mind against thousands of weapons. She studied their movements. She observed. While others fled or hid, she approached. What did she see? A vulnerability in logistics? A blind spot in the guard? A single officer who held all the advance information? The secret she carried with her is the key. But the act itself, though mysterious, matters almost less than the courage to carry it out. The weight of that decision must have been overwhelming. Stopping a division is not an act without consequences. It most likely meant causing immense chaos. It may have involved sabotage, widespread disinformation, or an act of sacrifice so personal that she couldn't bear to relive it by recounting it. The validation of her story lies in the outcome. The division stopped. The advance was halted, giving vital time for other forces to reorganize. Let's delve deeper into this moment, into this darkness before dawn. Her struggle didn't begin the day the division arrived. It began months before, perhaps years, when the occupation became a suffocating reality. She learned to live in the shadows, to listen to conversations without being noticed, to move like a ghost in her own homeland. These skills, born of oppression, became her weapons. The air that night, we could almost feel it. Cold, damp, heavy with the tension of 1,000 possible futures, most of them bleak. She is alone. The whole world seems to have shrunk to that single point on the map, that single task. She doesn't have a battalion to support her. She doesn't have artillery to cover her. She only has her knowledge, her determination, and perhaps the fear she has turned into fuel. Who were her support figures? Perhaps they weren't soldiers. Perhaps it was her grandmother who taught her about the herbs of the forest, and she used that knowledge to create a distraction or a mess. Perhaps it was her father, a bridge engineer, who before the war explained to her exactly which beams supported the entire weight of a structure, and she used that knowledge to make a main road impassable. Or perhaps her support was the resistance network itself, a web of whispers. Ordinary people who gave her crucial information. The baker who overheard a soldier talking about the supply road. The postman who saw a movement map. She wasn't just one person, but the focal point of a collective hope. The hand that finally executed the plan everyone desired. The profound challenge was the isolation. Even if others knew fragments, only she knew the entire plan. Only she walked to the point of execution. Imagine the final moments before the act. Her heart pounding against her ribs, the cold sweat, the need to control every muscle, every breath, so as not to be detected. A single mistake, a single sound, and all would be lost. And then the act. Be it a timed explosion, the interception of a vital message, the manipulation of railway signals, or something we can't even conceive of. The result was the same. The entire division stopped. Confusion, orders and counter-orders. The war machine, so efficient, was suddenly blind, paralyzed, trapped in its own complexity. That advance, which seemed certain, simply fell apart. She succeeded. She returned to the shadows, perhaps to her home, and watched the chaos she had created. The German division, frustrated and exposed, had to retreat or change course, losing precious time. She saved her city, perhaps her region. She was 19 years old. And now, the second challenge began, living with what she had done and what she knew. Her silence, why? Perhaps the act was technically a war crime, something she couldn't admit to. Perhaps it involved betraying someone she loved, forced to sacrifice one to save many. Or perhaps the secret was the weapon itself. If she revealed how she did it, the enemy would learn, and the trick couldn't be used again by others. Perhaps silence was her protection. If they knew what she had done, she would become a target. She would become a symbol, something she never wanted to be. She didn't want medals. She just wanted her home to be safe. She wanted the war to end. Glory was too high a price to pay for the peace she sought. Her struggle didn't end with that act. It continued for decades. Every time she saw a war memorial, every time she heard politicians speak of heroism, she knew the truth. She knew the real story was locked in her memory. A lonely burden, a victory she couldn't share with anyone. Her family, her friends, her children, if she had any. They lived alongside a giant, never knowing the true extent of her strength. She was the quiet neighbor, the gentle woman who tended the garden. And inside, she carried the knowledge that, for a brief and terrible moment, she held the fate of thousands in her hands. Her story forces us to look at our own circles. How many silent heroes walk among us? How many people carry the weight of incredible sacrifices that will never be recognized, simply because they chose the peace of anonymity instead of the noise of fame? It's a question that connects us directly to her across time. And I want to bring that connection to us here and now. We form a community that understands that history isn't made only by famous names. It's made by people like her, people who face impossible choices. I want you to think for a moment, what is the silent act of courage, yours or someone you know's, that has most impacted you? It doesn't have to be something that stopped an army. It can be the courage to defend a colleague, to start life over from scratch, to face an illness in silence so as not to worry others. Silent courage is all around us. It is the foundation of human resilience. And when we share these stories, we validate each other. Our purpose here is to create this wave of empathy. It's to honor the sacrifices that aren't in the history books. Therefore, I want to ask you to go to the comments and share your thoughts. Use the key phrase, "Silent courage is the strongest." Let this phrase be our tribute to her and to all the unsung heroes. By doing this, you're not just commenting on a video. You're joining a living memorial. You're telling the world that we see. We remember, we honor. Every comment with this phrase is a brick in the fortress of memory we're building together, a refuge for stories that cannot be lost. Now, let's analyze the tools she used, the human powers she had to manifest. The first, and perhaps the most obvious, was audacity. Not the noisy audacity of a soldier shouting in battle, but the cold, calculated audacity of challenging an entire division. The audacity to believe that she, a single person, could make a difference. This audacity is the refusal to accept an imposed destiny. It is looking reality in the face, seeing the overwhelming strength of the enemy, and still asking, "What is your weakness?" It is the courage to act when everyone else is paralyzed by fear. She had to break all the social and military rules she had been taught. Throughout history, audacity has been the spark for change. Think of Rosa Parks refusing to give up her seat. Think of the individuals who sheltered fugitives knowing they faced the death penalty. It's the decision not to be passive. Our 19-year-old protagonist embodied that. She actively decided that the monster wouldn't get past her without a fight. Applying this power to our lives means challenging inertia. It's asking, why not? When the world says, why not? It's having the courage to think differently, to find a solution that no one else sees, even if it means walking alone for a while. Her boldness was strategic, intelligent, and above all, necessary. The second concept of power she used was sacrifice. This is the emotional core of her story. Stopping a division wasn't a clean act. She had to sacrifice something. Perhaps she sacrificed her innocence, seeing or doing things that would haunt her forever. Perhaps she sacrificed her reputation, appearing to be a collaborator to gain access. The most obvious sacrifice, however, was that of her own history. She sacrificed recognition. She sacrificed validation. She sacrificed the possibility of being known as the savior of her city. She chose the safety of her community above her own human need to be seen and celebrated. That is a profound form of altruism. Historically, sacrifice is the foundation of freedom. Every right we have today was bought with the sacrifice of someone before us. Whether that sacrifice was of time, comfort, security, or ultimately, life itself. She understood, on a visceral level, that for something new to be born, something old needed to be broken. She teaches us that true impact lies not in what we gain, but in what we are willing to give up for the greater good. She gave up her own narrative. The secret she kept was her daily sacrifice, a constant reminder of the price she paid. A price she paid alone, in silence. And this brings us to her third and most enduring human power, silence. This was her ultimate tool for transformation. The act itself stopped the division, but her silence protected the secret, protected herself, and perhaps protected the method so that it could be used again. Silence became her armor and her weapon. Silence in times of war is a powerful strategy. It is the discipline of not speaking, the ability to know something of monumental importance and treat it with the gravity it deserves. She didn't boast. She didn't whisper to a best friend. She understood that the knowledge she possessed was dangerous. The power of silence is underestimated. We live in a world that demands everything be shared, every victory be posted. She reminds us that there is immense strength in knowing when not to speak, in protecting a truth. Her silence was not weakness. It was control. It was the iron discipline of a woman who understood the game on a level that no one else did. She transformed silence into a shield. a shield against interrogations, against fame, against analysis. By never revealing her secret, she remained in control of her own story. She didn't allow anyone to define her, distort her, or use her for propaganda. Her silence was the ultimate act of agency and power. Let's now imagine the new reality she created. The day after her act. The sun rises, but something is different. The sound of the German division's engines is distant or gone. The silence that fills the city is no longer the silence of fear, but a silence of confusion, of cautious hope. People emerge from their basements, looking at each other, uncomprehending. Life after her transformation was, outwardly, normal for her. But inwardly, she saw the world with different eyes. She walked the same streets, but saw the places differently. To the point where she observed. There, the paths she used in the darkness. Each location was a map of her secret memory, a diary that only she could read. She saw children playing in the square, which, without her intervention, would have been an enemy command courtyard. She saw families gathering for dinner, knowing that she had given them that dinner. She carried the profound satisfaction of her impact, a satisfaction that was purely her own. She didn't need external applause because the proof of her success was in the very air she breathed. The impact of her actions rippled. The halt of that division bought time, time for the Allies to arrive, time for the resistance to regroup, time for other cities to prepare. Her small act of sabotage, or whatever it was, had a domino effect that she herself may never have fully understood. She changed the map of the war in her region. The feeling of historic change must have been overwhelming. She witnessed the liberation of her city. She saw the enemy soldiers retreat defeated. And while everyone celebrated in the streets, she may have been in a corner, watching, with a slight smile, a smile that no one understood, the smile of someone who knows the truth. She grew old. The 19-year-old became a woman, a mother, a grandmother. And in her eyes there was always that gleam of knowledge, that depth that came from having seen the abyss and decided to jump, knowing that there might or might not be a safety net. She was living proof that history is made by individuals. She proved that weapons or armies aren't necessary to change the world. What is needed is courage, audacity, and sometimes the strength to keep a secret. The new reality she forged was not just the absence of war, but the presence of a future that she helped to secure. And over the years, perhaps historians have debated, why did the German division stop at that point? They wrote books, proposed theories, logistics failed, higher orders, the weather. And she, reading those books or listening to those discussions, knew the real answer. The answer was her. Her life is a testament to human resilience. Proof that, even in the darkest circumstances, a single light can pierce the darkness. She not only prevented an advance, she preserved the possibility of a future. She preserved life. Her story is a reminder to us all, a reminder that the power we have is often greater than we imagine, and that the most significant acts are not always the loudest. That's why this space exists. Stories like hers are the soul of our channel. They are the reason we gather here. This isn't just a place to consume historical facts. It's a refuge for souls seeking meaning, connection, and the profound truth of the human experience amidst chaos. If you felt the weight of her story, if you were moved by the power of her silence, know that you belong here. Your sensitivity to history, your empathy, is what unites us. We are the community that sits around the digital campfire to listen to stories that cannot be forgotten. Therefore, I invite you to become a permanent part of this community. Consider registering. Your registration is not just a click of a button. It's an act of belonging. It's your way of saying, I also see, I also remember. I also want to honor these silent stories. By joining us, you ensure that this fire never goes out. You become a guardian of these memories along with me. Welcome to our refuge. And thank you for truly listening to the story of silent courage.